So there's been all this buzz recently, right? About a leading LLM supposedly passing the Turing test.
Yeah, I saw those headlines. It definitely sparks a lot of debate.
It really does. But debates aside, the core thing is it might be the first, actual scientific hint that a machine can make us believe it thinks like a human.
And that takes us straight back to Alan Turing. You can't talk about this stuff without talking about him. The father of AI, as they say.
Exactly. And understanding the test, I mean, really understanding it, you kind of have to understand the person behind it. His mind, his life.
His struggles, too. It's all part of the story. Without his breakthroughs, things like our voice assistants, self-driving cars, maybe even these chatbots everyone's talking about,
Yeah.
they might still be just, well, science fiction.
That's what we want to explore today. This isn't just about the test itself. We're doing a deep dive into Turing the journey, the genius, the challenges, to get at the heart of the questions he was asking.
Makes sense. Where should we start? His early life.
Yeah, let's do that. What were those first sparks? I read he was always into numbers, puzzles.
Oh, absolutely. Apparently, he loved science books, even as a kid, ones that sort of compared the human body to a machine. Almost foreshadowing, isn't it?
Uh-huh. And then Cambridge. That seems like a key period.
Hugely. He wasn't just a brilliant student. He tackled this major unsolved math problem, Hilbert's and Scheiding's problem.
Mhm.
And that led him to conceptualize the universal machine.
The universal machine.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to grasp how revolutionary that was then. The idea of one machine.
That could basically compute anything, given the right instructions. It's the blueprint for, well, every computer, every smartphone in our pockets now. A
Yeah.
purely theoretical idea then, but foundational.
Mind-blowing, really. But it wasn't all abstract math, was it? There were people who influenced him deeply.
Right. Christopher Morcom, his best friend at Sherborne School. They were kindred spirits, apparently. Completely bonded over math and science.
And Morcom died very young, didn't he?
Yes. Suddenly, in 1930. And that hit Turing incredibly hard. It seems to have sparked this lifelong question in him, a really personal one. Could a mind, could consciousness somehow live on, maybe in another form?
Wow, so that grief, that loss, it fed into his later thinking about minds and machines.
I think it has to have. It adds this really human layer to his obsession with intelligence and what it means. It wasn't just logic puzzles for him.
Okay, so fast forward a bit, World War II, suddenly his very theoretical work becomes incredibly practical.
Right. Bletchley Park. Code-breaking central. Turing was absolutely crucial there. He led the team that cracked the German Enigma code.
Using the bomb machine, yeah, this electromechanical device.
Exactly. The bomb automated the process of checking possible Enigma settings. It was a monumental task, but they did it. And many historians believe that breaking Enigma significantly shortened the war.
Saved countless lives. It's staggering to think about this brilliant, maybe somewhat eccentric mathematician right at the heart of Allied intelligence.
A true unsung hero for a long time. His work was top secret for decades.
And then after the war, his focus shifts back to those fundamental questions about machines and thinking.
Yes, culminating in that landmark 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, where he directly asks, can machines think?
But he didn't just try to define thinking, did he? He proposed a test instead.
Exactly. He sidestepped the philosophical swamp by proposing the imitation game, what we now call the Turing test. It was pragmatic. Let's look at behavior, not get bogged down in definitions.
So just remind us, how does the test actually work?
Okay, so you have a human judge, and the judge is having two conversations purely through text, like typing back and forth.
Right, they can't see who they're talking to.
Correct. One conversation is with another human. The other is with a computer program designed to mimic human conversation. The judge's job is simply to figure out which is which.
And Turing's idea was?
His argument was, look, if a computer can consistently fool a human judge into thinking it's the human, well, then for all practical purposes, shouldn't we say it's thinking? It's displaying intelligent behavior.
It's clever. Focus on the output, the performance, not the internal state.
Precisely. Can it do what a thinking being does in conversation?
But then Turing's own life took such a difficult, tragic turn not long after this.
It really did. In 1952, he was arrested and prosecuted for homosexual acts. Being gay was illegal in Britain then.
The consequences were brutal.
Horrific. He was given a terrible choice. Prison or chemical castration via hormone treatments. He chose the treatments.
Which must have been devastating, physically, emotionally.
Absolutely. And on top of that, he lost his security clearance. He was cut off from government work, isolated from many colleagues. It's just a heartbreaking example of the prejudice of that era.
A terrible price to pay for just being who he was. But even during this awful time, his mind was still working, wasn't it? He published something else significant.
It's actually incredible. Yes, amidst all that personal turmoil, he published a paper on morphogenesis, basically how patterns form in biology.
Patterns, like zebra stripes.
Exactly like zebra stripes or spots on a leopard. He proposed a mathematical model, reaction diffusion systems, to explain how simple chemical processes could create these complex biological patterns.
That's amazing. So he's basically founding a whole new field, developmental biology, while facing persecution.
Pretty much. And that reaction diffusion model, it's still used today. Study everything from how seashells get their spirals to research in tissue engineering. It's another massive contribution.
It's almost hard to reconcile this immense scientific creativity happening alongside such personal suffering. People close to him noticed the toll it was taking, right?
Yes, reports suggest he became increasingly lonely, worried about the future. And then the end came so tragically.
1954, cyanide poisoning.
Yes, he was only 41. The official inquest ruled it suicide. And while, there are always some fringe theories, the widely held view is that the appalling treatment he suffered was a major factor, a devastating loss.
It really underscores the human cost of intolerance. And it connects back to something you mentioned earlier, this deep, almost emotional connection he had with his work.
Right. He talked about solving a math problem, feeling like seeing beauty. You can imagine the joy, the eureka moments he must have felt with the bomb, or the universal machine concept.
And underlying it all was this core idea you touched on: intelligence is a pattern.
Exactly. That's such a key insight. Intelligence wasn't some mystical human-only property for him. It was about information, about patterns of processing.
Which implies?
Well, if it's a pattern, it doesn't have to be confined to biological brains, right? Those patterns, theoretically, could exist in silicon too, in machines.
So computers could genuinely think, learn, maybe even surprise us.
That was the radical possibility he opened up, that intelligence could emerge from manipulating these patterns.
And you think about his life, these moments of pure intellectual beauty, discovering these patterns, contrasted with the ugliness and prejudice he faced in the real world.
It's a stark contrast. And it actually leads to a really interesting thought about why he might have designed the Turing test the way he did.
Okay. This idea that his personal experience shaped the test itself. Tell me about that hypothesis.
Well, think about his situation. Celebrated as a war hero, his intellect undeniably saving the nation. But at the same time, punished, ostracized for his private life, something totally unrelated to his mind.
Right, a total contradiction.
But in mathematics, he found this pure, objective world. He said something like, either a proof works or it doesn't. There is no prejudice in numbers.
Math is impartial.
Exactly. Now look at the test again. The judge is blind, right? They don't know if they're talking to a man, a woman, a machine, someone famous, someone unknown.
All biases based on identity are removed.
Completely stripped away. All the judge has is the quality of the conversation, the intelligence of the responses.
So the hypothesis is, he designed the test to be this kind of ideal space.
Kind of, yeah. Maybe subconsciously, maybe deliberately. A space where ideas are judged purely on merit. A conversation free from the kind of hypocrisy and bias he knew all too well. It didn't matter who or what was intelligent, only that intelligence was present.
That's actually quite profound. It adds this whole other dimension to the test, not just a scientific tool, but maybe a personal statement too.
It makes you think, doesn't it? And it highlights why Turing is still so incredibly relevant. His questions haven't gone away.
Not at all. We're still grappling with them every day in AI research. How do we define machine intelligence, really? Can machines learn like we do?
And the Turing test itself, or at least the spirit of it, keeps coming up as chatbots and robots get more sophisticated.
Yeah.
What does it mean to think? Turing forced us to confront that.
And his legacy, it feels bigger than just AI, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. His life is this powerful, if tragic, reminder about openness, fairness, the courage to ask the difficult questions, even when society pushes back.
It shows that science isn't just cold, hard facts. It's driven by human passion, curiosity, struggle.
Exactly. Intellect and emotion, brilliance and vulnerability all wrapped up together.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really leaves you, the listener, with something to chew on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Think about it. What does it truly mean for an idea, whether it's from a person or maybe one day a machine, to win out just based on its own strength? In a world that's so often swayed by how things look, by who's saying it, what would that purely merit-based conversation, the kind Turing maybe envisioned in his test, actually look like?
How can we get closer to that ideal, maybe, where intellect is valued above all the noise? It's a challenge Turing's life and work leaves us with.